water.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning, right?
I am John Palacio.
And I'm April Martinez.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Lovely
it's a
morning.
beautiful one. You feel it with us?
It's Christmas.
Yeah, you feel Christmas too?
I'm excited.
I've spoken to a lot of my folks in the US and they're like, right now, November 3rd, November 10th, and it's 75 degrees, and like, but this is not normal.
Yeah, well.
And here, while it's November 10th,
11,
and you're feeling at 70 degrees, you're like, this is not normal.
But they feel nice.
But it feels good. It feels good.
It
and
does.
that's primary for us. It feels very good. We trust that everything is great with you. We know that some things are tough, but again, within those, that's where you find that fine line that you really need in life.
But I mean, speaking of just the fact that it's a different change of weather, it's feeling cool, you're getting that Christmas vibe in a normal.
Yeah.
That is all due to climate change.
Exactly what we feel is the hot topic at this particular point. Every morning, what we do is that we share with you what's buzzing. And what's buzzing for us at this point is the fact that climate change is actually upon us.
Yes, it is.
And we've got a group or a team that are in Egypt.
Sharm el Sheikh.
Egypt. Right?
Sharm el Sheikh.
So they're in that African nation, and we'll be chit-chatting with Dwayne in just a few. It's Dwayne and Kenroy Michael who are there. Took that ride.
Yeah, you just said drive?
Took that ride all the way to Egypt. I mean, how much plane must you have to catch to get there?
That is a lot of connected flights, and I think it's about almost 12 to 13 hours of travel.
Man, I tell you what, I drive home for 10 minutes and I'm like,
you're tired.
But that's the way it is. You know, April, over this hurricane season, we've seen that. As a matter of fact, as the years go by, we're actually seeing the effects of climate change.
Yes, we are.
And people need to understand that it is real. There's some folks who might tell you that this have been happening for donkey's years.
Yeah.
You know, but even so, we're actually seeing the effects as we speak. We're talking erosion. We're talking how tough storms are at this particular point. The drought. We're talking, rainy season and how tough that is as well. I mean, all of these things play a role in climate change.
It changes the way we have been that relationship that we have with our environment and the weather for the past years that are going. Now it's no longer it's as simple as saying June to November, the hurricane season, because now that we're seeing hurricanes are frequently more in May, and then they're frequently happening in November. You might have to extend that season at some point. It's cooler in certain parts of the world. It's warmer. There was a heat wave in Europe over the summer, and there's certain parts of the north that are facing hurricanes, and hurricanes only happen in the places that are hot with warm weather, and the further up north it's going, that is telling you that it's getting warmer, more up north,
elsewhere,
and that is changing.
And of course we see ice melting in those areas of the world where it's predominantly ice. But nonetheless, we've got Dwayne. He's in Sharm el Sheikh, all the way in Egypt. It is for COP 2022. 2020.
COP 27 for 2022.
For 2022. Thank you so very much for the correction there. But Dwayne is all the way there, along with our cameraman, Kenroy Michael. And let's join Dwayne. Dwayne, good morning from beautiful
Dwayne.
Belize.
Egypt. Guys, the UN's conference of parties is on the way. Well, it has been since last week. And the discussions, the negotiations are raging on. We're here day 2 on the ground here in this Egyptian city. And I can tell you guys that the discussions have been intense, leading up to, of course, the political leaders who will then come here to this city to make some final determinations next week. Earlier today, though, I had the privilege of sitting down with Belize's lead negotiator, UN Ambassador Carlos Fuller, who really spoke to us completely about what is expected here at COP27, the 27th edition of this conference here in Sharm. He spoke about this so-called implementation COP.
Dubbed as the implementation COP because we finished the last major agreement, which was the Paris Agreement. And we know it was supposed to start to be implemented in 2020. But of course, with the COVID, that everything shut down, and our next meeting did not occur until Glasgow last year. So this is where we're now into the phase of implementing the Paris Agreement. But of course, that still means also establishing the work programs to get things going. So at this COP, we are looking at, for example, at a mitigation work program. That is, how do we ramp up ambition to ensure that we get on the 1.5 degree track? We are not on it yet, and we only have this critical decade, the 2020s up to 2030, to put us on the 1.5 degree track. So in fact, I was given the privilege of actually chairing that contact group, which will be coming up with this work program. So we are working on that all this week, and I have to prepare a final draft this evening, which will then be presented to the parties tomorrow to be submitted to the COP presidency to be adopted next week. So that is going to be an important thing, because for us, 1.5 is survival for us. Absolutely.
Will we be able to get, there are some who feel that we won't be able to get that 1.5.
Yeah, absolutely. There are those who say that, and that is why we have come up with the next hook onto it: loss and damage. If we don't get 1.5, indeed, we'll be having more loss and damage. And so we said, if we can't do it, let's establish a financing facility to provide the resources in the event we don't get 1.5, we'll be suffering loss and damage, then help us then in that regard. So you can either give us the 1.5 or give us the big money.
Are we getting headway, or making headway with the COP? Because there are people who feel that, you know what, it still continues to be a talk shop. There's nothing that has changed.
Well, absolutely. We have to continue talking. And you're quite right that with the 1.5 financing facility, we had to fight to put it on the agenda. And that fight led to negotiations on the day before the COP opened until 1 o'clock in the morning. We had to continue at 9 a.m. the following morning, Sunday morning, to actually get it on the agenda. But we got it on the agenda, so we are now talking. And I want to use a phrase that is very common in Belize, right? Stubborn picnic. And what do you do with stubborn picnic? You can't throw them out of the house. You just have to work with them so that at the end of the day, they will understand why it is you have to go to school, why it is you can't be running around like that, why you can't be hanging around that group. Stubborn picnic, hard is, but you have to continue working on them. You cannot give up.
Sir, you know, just recently we've been seeing more and more hurricanes battering the Caribbean. We've even seen hurricanes battering the U.S. itself. How do we then tell a country like the U.S., hey, we need you to pump money into these small island development states who have been affected? The effects of climate change was not their fault, but yet they have something there that they need to, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we continue to press on the issue of historical responsibility. Yes, they got their development through the use of fossil fuels, and so they created the problem, maybe inadvertently at the beginning, but since 1992, when they had the convention established in Rio, then they knew better then. So, and in fact, the agreement in Rio in 1992 was that by the year 2000, their levels of emissions would go back to 1990 levels. In fact, it has continued to skyrocket. So they have not lived up to their obligations, and we take them to task on that issue. And we also try to remind them, if you don't address the issue now, you're seeing what happened in North Africa with all the refugees going northwards. You're now seeing it in Central America, all the refugees going northward. They will feel the impact either directly, well, both directly because of the forest fires, the hurricanes, the flooding and so on, and indirectly as refugees start to flood their borders because even more worse impacts in our area.
Sir, just in general, in terms of being at these events, because you've been here representing as lead negotiator for some time now, what's your take on these COPs and the impact that it has for countries to have a space so that they can voice their opinion?
Well, absolutely. It is critical, both as a platform where all the countries are equal, speak to each other, negotiating in groups. So it brings that solidarity of South-South, islands coming together and so on. So that is great. But if you notice, this hub that began, when I recall, in 1992 up to about 2009. There were brought between 5 and to 9,000 people. This year, 65,000 people registered for the COP. So it is the fulcrum. It is what brings everybody together to discuss what is actually occurring on the ground. So all these pavilions that you see here are people showing this is the all vulnerability, but these are also solutions that we have identified. So it brings that together. It brings this massive crowd together to address the issue.
Lead negotiator there with Dwayne Moody, talking about what we can expect from this entire COP27. Look, there's so many things to look forward to, and it seems that small countries will eventually soon be benefiting from this. But we still have Dwayne. Dwayne, once again, good morning from beautiful Belize.
Good morning. What time is it? What time is it, Dwayne?
It's just before 3 p.m.
Oh,
wow.
Good afternoon,
Good
Dwayne.
afternoon to you.
Primarily, and then
go ahead, John.
No,
I wanted to know what the experience is like. There are a lot of small countries there as well who are telling these big countries, look, we're doing our part.
Yes.
You are continuing to emit. So what is that like? What's that experience like at this point?
Well, it makes the discussions inside these negotiating rooms, these meeting rooms, kind of intense. But like Ambassador Fuller said, and it does provide a space for a small country like Belize to be on the same playing field as one of those bigger countries like the US or China. And so there's no, I big, you small, this situation. It's, you know what, I have a voice here, and this is my issue that I have. What are we going to do to address it? Because now we're seeing that the impacts of climate change are affecting these bigger countries as well. Just last week, the US was battered by a storm and things like that. So we're seeing more and more where the impacts are being felt not only in small island development states like Belize, but also in these bigger countries. One of the things, too, guys, also I sat down with, I did an interview with Dr. Colin Young from 5Cs, the Climate Change Office Center in Belize. And while Mr. Fuller, Ambassador Fuller, was really diplomatic with what he was saying in terms of everybody coming together to have a collective effort to dealing with this issue of climate change, he basically took a different stance, saying that, you know what, it's been 27 years of talking and decisions coming out of COP26 and other things, and they're not meeting the needs of the region. CARICOM itself is 35 million people. Their dreams and aspirations are at risk, and that is the Caribbean alone. And we have been feeling the impact. Just a few years ago, Antigua and Barbuda was wiped off, basically in terms of all its structures were wiped off by a hurricane. And we saw the impacts to Belize just last week with Hurricane Lisa. And so I have an interview with him that we're going to share right now. He is saying, you know what, we have no more time for words. And we need it to be implemented now. And even with the implementation of the decisions made last year in Glasgow for COP26, we're still not going to be where we need to be. Here's that interview.
And that is why you'll find that CARICOM is still very much, along with AOSIS, pushing to make sure that the countries do more than just what they promised in Glasgow. We want them to do what they promised in Glasgow, plus more. Why? Because the world has become an even more dangerous place from a climate impact point of view since 1 year ago.
Sir, what is it that we want, or what can we get, or what the region wants?
So, we are still on a path where we are going to exceed 1.5 to stay alive by as early as this decade. Few years from now. So while we're talking and slow walking and obfuscating, Belize was hit by a hurricane last week. Bahamas was hit by a hurricane yesterday. floods and droughts continue to impact our region. And so we need the developed countries to undertake greater emission cuts now, here, so that we are more likely to keep 1.5 alive. That's what we want them to do. Just don't do what you say you're going to do in Glasgow, because that was not enough. We also want them to make sure that the money comes to us faster and quicker. They failed to reach the 100 billion, and they won't meet it this year either. That's absolutely unacceptable, because we're suffering from something that we did not cause. And then 3, we made a little progress at this COP. For us, it was a red line that loss and damage was included on the agenda of the COP. From 1991, CARICOM has been pushing for this agenda item to be on the COP. We finally succeeded in having an agenda item, and it feels as though it's such a big win. But the truth is that it just gives us now the room for us to talk about how we will proceed. And one of the outcomes we want from this is that there is eventually going to be a facility, a fund that is capitalized, that then can provide grants in a quick, efficient, fast way to countries who are suffering immense losses and damages from climate change.
All right, that's Dwayne Moody there.
Yeah.
You know, Dwayne, very interesting interview that you did there, and learning a lot from what's going on there. And like you rightly mentioned, this is actually, well, it started to sound like a scratch record, but these countries now are actually coming out to say this is not it. You've been saying so on and so forth. We actually need to see action at this point.
So
April?
then I guess my question, Dwayne, is what are the conversations in terms of solutioning and holding these larger countries accountable for their actions?
Well, you see, guys, the issue is that these larger countries, they are here, they're represented here at these COPs, so they understand, they recognize that, you know, climate change is an issue. They basically are owning up to the fact that, yes, they may be culpable, or they are culpable, but the problem with the COP is that whatever, and like Dr. Young said, you know, they haven't been meeting their commitments to fund, to make that $100 billion fund where smaller countries like Belize would be able to tap into for climate financing, so that we can adapt and mitigate to the impacts and the risks associated with climate change. And that is one of the issues, because while they have pledged that, yes, we are going to fund that $100 million on a yearly basis, they haven't been meeting that commitment, but we can't do anything to them for it, because that commitment is not binding.
Oh, wow.
So the rules and the agreements that have been made, they're not binding when it comes to climate financing and having those monies available for these smaller development states. No?
So then, Dwayne, where you were at COP26 last year, where they did sign agreements, they did say forth that they were going to create new indications for how they were going to finance certain smaller countries and so forth with the climate fund. To this COP27 then, for this primary focus would be then to hold those agreements to these larger countries? Would they then bind these agreements? And then I guess for Belize in itself, who are the delegates that are making sure that our voices are being heard in the table where those agreements are being signed?
Well, basically, what has happened so far is that the commitments that were made back last year in Glasgow, for that declaration that was signed, it was with an effort to ensure that, we put in place all the things that are needed to ensure that we can get to that 1.5 degrees by 2050. The issue is that on the track that we are right now, we are going to surpass that 1.5 degrees. And so they're saying that, and the UN representative, Mr. Fuller, said that, you know what, we can do it if the changes are made now. And hence, that's the reason why this COP here in Sharm el Sheikh, they're saying that, it's an implementation COP. Whether that is going to happen, it's still to be seen. Yeah. But what we do know is that Belize has its representation here. It has a number of negotiators, some young people that are at every single one of these meetings as it relates to Belize, or where there's an interest from Belize. Yeah. So we have persons there that they're looking at gender outside of man and woman, and looking at people in general, indigenous people, all of that, and how they have been affected by climate change. We have a Belizean negotiator that is also a coordinator for transparency with AOSIS, which is a big move that has been made, where Belizeans are on these boards, are heading these committees and guiding the conversation that is taking place. So essentially what has happened between last year and this year is that last year Belize made a strong representation, and it was able to secure some of these seats where it has a bigger voice, and it's not only talking for Belize, but for regional bodies like AOSIS and the SEDS, right? I have one other thing that is also happening here, though. Today, the tone was really surrounding carbon credits. This is something that Belize has a lot of, because of the efforts that we put in place for the preservation and conservation of our forests, be that mangrove or what have you, even our seagrass. And so that is an issue that is being talked about for the most part today. Yeah. From everything, from the sale of carbon credits, the estimations, as well as how the mechanisms that would be in place to deal with that. Now, all of this falls under Article 6 that deals with climate finance and all of that, which came out of the Paris Agreement and was finalized basically last year. But they're trying to finalize all these the little details. We actually spoke with Dr. Lennox Gladden. He's the National Climate Change Officer in Belize, and he gives us a little insight on the whole issue with with carbon credits. Let's go to that interview.
The discussions with some of the donors, some of the stakeholders, some of the various institutions is, okay, so you have carbon credits, what's your potential as a country, how can we assist you in either putting mechanisms in place or actual purchase your carbon credits. So a lot of discussions at this point is along that line.
Where is Belize? And at least if I'm not mistaken, Belize has already done the research and knows it's the carbon credits that it has available. Right?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work through the support of FCPF, the World Bank Group. So the readiness phase through the Red Plus project is completed. So we have some pre-2020 credits that we already know how much that potential is. But we also recently concluded and it's the first of its kind in the region that looks at mangrove carbon, right? So we did a national assessment that looked at mangrove carbon through the assistance of Pew. Of course, Nadia Bud back in Belize, she was very instrumental in that process. We had 14 institutions, so it was a robust collaboration and work getting done on the ground. So through that assessment from mangrove carbon, it was between 22 and I think 25 teragrams of mangrove carbon. Right? So that is quite significant, but it is there. Now it's to interpret that to results-based payment. We know that we're very rich in biodiversity. That is a given. And that is the branding. By looking at that branding, it is the difference between $5 per ton and $15 per ton. And even $15 per ton and 50 USD per ton. And if we have at this point, the current estimation is, and this is just the recent report, in excess of 5 million, come on, that's a big difference, right? So that branding to say that, okay, we are protecting, we are managing, and we're blending between not only conservation but development. That these are things that the funders, they appreciate because they can see the connection. We're not selling just to sell's sake, We're selling to help to enhance all these activities with both local and indigenous communities. So that the branding for Belize, it is really up there. And that helps to increase the price that you can get if we choose to venture into the carbon market.
Rich in the carbon market, so said, of course, Lennox Gladden, lead when it comes to climate change, from the climate change office here in Belize. It's very significant, Dwayne, and we know that you're still there, and you can jump in any minute. It's very significant. What did you get? What did you get from that interview?
Well, basically, it's that there's a climate change legislation that they're trying to finalize, so that all stakeholders can have an idea of what the process is to enter the carbon credit market. You see, one of the interesting things that I got from Dr. Gladden is that a lot of countries, a lot of entities have been approaching Belize wanting to buy its credits. The problem is, at least the issue is that you want to get the best value for your carbon credit, right? And so they're looking at it whether they should do it on an individual basis or as a region, because there are if you go as a region, maybe you can get a better price for it, you know. And so that's one of the discussions that I had. I will have a full package on that in the news later today, where I spoke to different stakeholders from where we are in terms of having a registry in place, so that it looks at not only private landowners who add to that the carbon credit in Belize, as well as areas with forests that are under protection by some kind of act. Right. So those are all the things that we're looking at, and Belize stands ready basically to go out there.
All right, Dwayne, thank you so very much. We do hope to hear from you again sometime soon. We know that a little later on we'll be hearing from you in the newscast that comes up later on at 6 o'clock this evening. Dwayne, thank you so very much. All right. You know, very interesting, April. Yeah. Very interesting, the events that's taking place there in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt for COP 27, right?
COP 27, COP 27, 2022. And you know, when we were discussing COP right before the initial conference started this year, and the truth of the matter is that how are we at 27 years still discussing what we're going to do about it? And the truth of the matter is that yes, you have the smaller countries that have taken initiative, and I've been thinking about the reason why Belize is able to secure X amount of carbon credits, and why because we're still so green in our country. You know, 60% of our landmass is tropical forest, and it's rich in that ecological factor. Most of these larger countries are industrialized. If you think about, for example, the United States, that is just because that's where my brain goes. In almost every single county, there is a factory. There is a factory. That is the way that that small town is able to produce and make money for the state and for eventually for the larger country. Yeah. If you think about how much air pollution, how much gases, how much fossil fuels, how much greenhouse gases goes up into the atmosphere per every county. In that landmass alone, it's 48 states. 50, well, it's 50 states with Hawaii, but on that landmass alone, it's 48 states. In that particular atmosphere, going up, surrounding, and taking everything up into the atmosphere and then spreading it out into our region and our environment.
Because it comes right? This way. Yeah.
So it begs the question, necessity for a factory in every single state. Yeah. Why do you need to have X amount of production in every single state like that? What can you as a larger state do to reduce those efforts? You're already a giant corporation as a country, and you run the entire world.
But it boils down now to how these countries are actually trying to sustain their people and try to that's the danger in the conversation.
Yes.
Because it's very important that your community have something that people could actually go to make some money. We need to get to the weather, though. That much I can tell you. We need to get to the weather. We're speaking climate change, and so much is going on at this point, right? So much is going on at this point. But the effects are actually felt more so in the weather.
It is. It is, and I feel that the more we have conversations for solution based, the fact that those agreements aren't binding is a little bit alarming to me, because then there is no accountability.
All right, stick up in right there.
Okay. Say, no, get me started.
Let's get to the weather. Of course, we need to know what the weather is going to be like for today and throughout the weekend. And here's that for you.
Good morning. It will be another fair day with sunny skies, a few cloudy spells, and little or no rainfall. Tonight, skies will be partly cloudy, and again, little or no rainfall will develop. This continues Saturday, and then an increase in moisture over the area will support a few showers along the coast Saturday night. Winds today will be light and variable, and seas will be slight. Low tides occur at 6:10 this morning and 5:14 this evening. High tides follow at 12:13 this afternoon and 11:10 tonight. Temperatures this afternoon peak at 79 Fahrenheit up in the Maya Mountains, 86 along the coast, and 89 inland. The moon sets at 8:44 this morning, and sunset is at 5:17 this evening. In the sargassum forecast, the chances of new sargassum mats affecting beaches across the country will remain low during the next few days. In the tropical weather outlook, tropical cyclone formation is not expected in the North Atlantic, Caribbean Sea, or Gulf of Mexico during the next 48 hours. And that's the latest from the Belize Weather Bureau. Do have a pleasant day.
And we're so thankful that you were able to provide
We recognize
us with the
their
weather
voice so
update.
well. Yes.
Yeah. That's the way it is. But nonetheless, we've got a packed show for you. It is a fun Friday, and we've got some fun things to share with you, including a small business to discuss with, because it's also Small Business Friday.
It is Small Business
We'll be kicking
Friday.
things off this morning with
Grace
Lisa.
and you.
Yeah. Hold on, man. Hold on. You see, she's dipping on my chocolate. You see what it's going? You see? It's actually Grace and you. But, you know, there are a lot of people who might have things left over. And why go buy something when you know that you've got things left over?
Yeah.
And it might be closer to the expiration date. And so what they'll be doing is showing us how to make some luncheon meat fajitas.
John.
What? I don't understand you. Come on.
The excitement that you have
Come on.
for this is I feel it, I resonate with it, and you know what? I'm excited to see the recipe.
Luncheon meat
fajitas.
Man, I got lunch today, I can tell you that. I got lunch today.
But on our second segment, after we're done eat with luncheon meat fajitas, we're going to be working it out with some self-defense classes. We'll be talking about protecting yourself, why that is important, and of course we invited our representatives from the Belize Dark Arts to show us exactly what self-defense is and how, as citizens, we can try to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Looking forward to that, definitely, because it is very important that we know how to defend ourselves in the event of anything, intruders and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that's a great topic. We're looking forward to that. And we'll be ending things off, like I mentioned, it is a fun Friday. And Fun Fridays also spells Small Business Fridays. And so we'll be tapping into Hello Body. And they'll be telling us all about their small business. I hope the massage, though. I hope that.
You don't know Hello Body?
No, I don't know.
Interesting, because I would think that Hello Body is now a much larger entity than what it used to be, and that is something to be proud of.
All right, so we've got those and more right here live on 5. We're so glad that you were able to wake up, open your eyes, and start your morning right with us. When we come back, we'll be inside the kitchen whipping up luncheon meat fajitas. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.